Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is part 3 of my series where I am ranking the GoodReads Choice Award nominees in the category of romance. If you haven't seen the first 2 videos, make sure you jump back and go watch those ones. I'll add a link to them in the description below. And just as a reminder, there are 20 books on this list. I am reading all of them and ranking them how I think they should be ranked from 1st place to 20th place. Just as a reminder, continuing from last week's video, this is what our list is looking like thus far. And as this series continues, we're gonna keep building on this list. So let's jump into it. And then I just needed to jump in really quickly to apologize. I don't know what happened to the clip here. You'll see I'm in the same spot where I was in the last book that I talked about in part 2, the pairing. But for some reason, the footage got a little messed up. So we're gonna jump to that in a second, but I'm talking about This Could Be Us. I'm a little less than halfway through and I'm really enjoying this one. This one I went in completely blind. Most of the books on this list I'd heard about previously, so I had a little bit of a frame of reference for what was going to be happening in the book. But this one, I didn't even read the description, I just started reading, and this one starts with some drama. So we're following Soledad, who we saw a little bit in the first book, and she's having some problems with her marriage. Her husband's been home less and less, and he's getting meaner and more distant, and then something happens that she never could have imagined. And now she's having to figure out how to support her 3 daughters by herself. There's a man that she's met that makes her feel things that she hasn't felt in years, but she's wanting to focus on herself, focus on her daughters. And I'm really excited to see how this one goes. I'm really loving seeing the healing, so we'll just see how it goes. Alrighty, so I'm a little bummed. I really wanted to like This Could Be Us way more than I actually did. I just kind of felt like Soledad was leading Judah on a little bit, and I felt like we didn't get to know a lot about Judah. I would have liked to learn more about him. I also expected there to be more emphasis on the girls and all the changes in their life, and same with Judah's boys. Like, I really enjoyed the first half of this book, but the second half just kind of really fell flat for me. So for this one, I'm thinking I'm gonna put it above the pairing, but below Swift and Saddled. And then because I have no chill, I'm immediately jumping into the next one, which I'm thinking I'm gonna start Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I've heard a lot of things about this one. I'm not a big paranormal person, and so my understanding that I've gleaned from other people talking about this book is it is a vampire werewolf romance. And I've heard things about anatomy, and I'm a little nervous to read this one, but we'll see how it goes. So I'll do another check-in when I'm like somewhere between 30 to 50% through and see how that goes. Alrighty, so I'm in my car on my lunch break. I took off my glasses because I didn't realize how much they reflect back until I started editing as I was going a little bit for this video. So sorry about all those clips where you just couldn't see my eyes. But I am a little less than halfway through Bride, and I'm really liking it. So in this one, we're following Misery. She's a vampire. She's the daughter of like the head councilman, and she has been kind of put in this arranged marriage with the alpha of the werewolf pact that is in North America to try to bridge peace and create like an alliance between the vampires and the weres. And I'm kind of really liking it. It's kind of giving me the same vibes as like a mafia romance where there's these different territories and you have the different people that are in charge of those territories. And so like that's kind of fun. I'm kind of surprised though at how little the different species know about each other, because there's the vampires, the weres, and the humans, and they all seem to not really know anything about each other. But they've all been living together, not really together, but like in their own separate territories for hundreds of years. So I think that's kind of odd. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how this is gonna go. I'm really liking it. I'm wondering if I should maybe start expanding my horizons a little bit and read some more paranormal-esque things. So we shall see, but I'm really excited to keep reading. Alrighty, so I finished Bride, and I'm actually surprised at how much I liked it. I thought it was really good. The aforementioned anatomy thing, it was a bit odd, but it only came up like twice, so I kind of feel like people might have been making it a little bit of a bigger deal than it actually was, but that's just my opinion. But I really liked the found family of this one. I'm curious if Allie Hazelwood's gonna write a second book, because there was a couple parts that just smelled a little like foreshadowing. So I would be really excited if she wrote a second book, 'cause I liked this one a lot. I'm thinking I'm gonna put it below Daydream, but above Funny Story. And while I have you here, I figured I'd also briefly mention I've started Lies and Weddings. I'm like 50 pages into it. I'm struggling a bit to get into this one. As I'm reading it, there's a lot of little asterisks in it, and then there's like a note at the bottom of the page, and I don't know if I really like that. Like, it's kind of just like extra little tidbits about the story or about the characters, and I don't know. It's kind of putting me off a little bit, and just the language of the writing is just kind of formal, I guess, and so I'm struggling to get into it. This one I have a physical copy, so I'm actually physically reading it. I had started listening to it as an audiobook, but again, because of those asterisks, and then like every new person, it then in parentheses will like list all of their schooling, I think is what it is. So it was really, I felt like it was hard to listen to, so I started reading it, and I don't know, so far I'm struggling to get into this one. Hello! I just finished filming for another video, so I figured while I'm here, I'll film also my check-in. I believe when I last checked in with you guys, I had just started Lies and Weddings, and I was really struggling to get into it. It's still definitely not my favorite book that I've read on this list, but it's getting easier. I think I had mentioned that I started on audiobook and then I started reading physically. I switched back over to the audiobook again, and now that we're kind of into it, I'm like 40-ish% of the way through. Now that we're into it, I'm starting to enjoy it. It's definitely picked up for me. And yeah, it's getting interesting. There's a little bit of a mystery factor involved. It is a little hard to follow because there's a lot of characters, but it's getting better. So I'm interested to see where the story is going to go. Hello! I just finished Lies and Weddings, and it was okay. It definitely wasn't my favorite book on this list. It did eventually pick up for me. I ended up listening to it on Audible. There was just a lot of things I didn't like about this one. There was a lot of locations, like quite literally all over the world. There's a lot of different characters, and randomly, in chapters, it would just switch between a bunch of different people's perspective. And then I really found it annoying. Every new person that we met would then list what all of their schooling is, which I thought was annoying and not really needed. There was also, I think I mentioned it in one of my previous check-ins, there was a lot of extra little tidbits that we're supposed to like just add extra background to the story that I felt sometimes took away from the story a little bit. Also, I absolutely hated Lady Arabella. Terrible mother. But there definitely was some entertaining parts. There was one dinner scene that was very, very juicy. Lots of gossip and drama. So honestly, I feel like this book was more of a drama than a romance. There was some good twists in there, so it definitely wasn't terrible, but it took me a while to get into it. So I'm thinking for this one, I'm gonna put it above the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, but below This Summer Will Be Different. I am about 30% of the way into Not in Love by Allie Hazelwood, and so far I think I'm liking it. This is the third book I've read by Allie Hazelwood, and I find her writing very easy to follow, so that's nice. I've been just kind of really quickly skimming through it, reading on my Kindle. I'm curious to see where the story is going to go. We have Rue, who's a scientist, and the company that she's working for is seeming like it's being taken over by a different company for like financial reasons. And Eli is a part of that company, and they accidentally met the night before this was all announced, and they didn't know who each other was, so that's always a fun little scandal. So I'm curious to see how things are going to go. It sounds like there might be some nefarious things happening with the company, so I'm curious to see how it's all gonna play out. So I guess I'll just have to keep reading. Also, say hello to my doggy Zoe. Zoe. Hi, baby. So I have finished Not in Love, and I didn't really like it. And I'm struggling to put into words why I didn't like it. I just was kind of bored. I felt like I was just waiting for it to be over. I didn't really feel any chemistry between Rue and Eli. I didn't really see what they had in common, why they were interested in each other. I also thought it was really weird how often Eli kept bringing up his ex-fiance. Like, it just kind of felt that maybe he wasn't fully over her. So I don't know. I just didn't really like this one, and I'm struggling to put to words why I didn't really like this one. I just was kind of bored. So I'm thinking for this one, I'm going to put it below the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. So I'm about 40% of the way through Wild Love by Elsie Silver, and I can see why she's so popular. I'm really enjoying this one. I like her writing style. It's funny, really easy to follow. I'm having a good time. So for this one, we're following Ford. He recently bought this old barn, and he's renovating it to be a recording studio. He wants to help up-and-coming artists, and he's had a good bit of success in the music world, and next door to him is his best friend, West, and they grew up together, but Ford has a secret. He's been carrying a torch for West's sister since they were little kids, but it doesn't matter. He hasn't seen Rosie in about 10 years. She has this big, amazing life in the city, or so he thought, until Rosie shows up at her brother's front door with her car full of all her belongings. But Ford needs to focus. He needs to focus on getting his recording studio up and running, and he needs to focus on this 12-year-old girl who shows up on his front door saying that he's her dad. I'm really excited to keep reading this one. Alrighty, so I have finished Wild Love, and I really liked this one. I liked that there wasn't this big, how dare you go after my sister kind of moment. The book kind of mentioned it a little bit, and also I've heard other people say the same thing. If you wouldn't be comfortable with your best friend and your sibling getting together, what does that say about the friends that you keep? Also, a microtrope that I personally love is when there is banter over email or text, and there's some of that, which is something that I just really liked. It was really funny too. I don't fully know how I feel about Rosie. She's definitely wild, very chaotic. In some ways, she kind of reminds me of a cat. I'm curious if anyone else who's read this book gets what I mean by that. You have to let me know in the comments if you agree. I also loved the found family of this one. I'm always a sucker for found family. So I'm thinking, looking at my list here, I'm thinking somewhere in the middle for this one. I'm thinking I'm gonna put this one below Funny Story, but above the rom-commers. Okie dokie, so that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for being here. As I've previously said, I've been having so much fun working on this series, so let me know in the comments below if you've read any of the books that I talked about today, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any other videos, and I'll see you guys next week for the fourth and final part to this series. Bye.